Ready to step off the map from the most hidden alleyways to the stories nobody told you? Uncharted Alleyways begins now. Your definitive guide and travel podcast, culture, adventure, and the world as you've never heard it. Tune in, disconnect from the obvious, and come explore with us. Uncharted Alleyways, your next trip starts here.
Imagine, just for a moment, trying to hide 20,000 people directly beneath the feet of an invading army.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite a mental image.
Right. And you're just hiding the people either. You're hiding like their livestock, their grain, their cooking fires, and even their schools.
All of it.
All of it. And you were doing this hundreds of feet underground in this massive complex spanning 18 stories deep.
18 stories.
Yeah, 18. While, heavily armed soldiers are marching on the surface right above you, completely unaware that you're even down there.
I mean, that doesn't even sound like historical reality.
It really doesn't. It sounds like a science fiction movie. But that is exactly what happened beneath the famous hot air balloons of Cappadocia.
It completely flips your perspective on the region, doesn't it?
Totally.
Because the postcard image, the thing that draws millions of people to central Turkey, is always looking up at the sky or marveling at those towering, kind of bizarre rock formations.
The fairy chimney.
Right, the fairy chimneys. But the true story of survival, the real engineering marvels that define human existence in this region for millennia, it actually requires us to look down.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for you, the curious learner who wants to know how things actually work, we're taking this deep dive and bypassing the vacation photos completely.
We're getting into the dirt.
Exactly. We're looking at the foundational mechanics of Cappadocia. How did the unique geology of this region fundamentally dictate human survival?
Which is such a massive question.
It is. We're going to look at how it gave birth to ancient crafts, how it chemically altered the way local food is cooked, and how it's basically reshaping modern architectural tourism today.
Yeah, we're exploring that whole causal chain, the one that links the literal dirt beneath your feet to, well, every single aspect of life in this region.
So where do we start?
Well, the foundational element to all of this, the blank canvas of Cappadocia, if you will, is a very specific type of rock called tuff.
Tuff, with two Fs, right?
Yes, Tuff. And to understand everything that happens next, we have to understand what tuff actually is.
Okay, break it down for us.
So, millions of years ago, ancient volcanoes like Mount Urses erupted, blanketing this entire region in this massive layer of thick volcanic ash.
Just burying everything.
Exactly. And over geological time, that ash compressed into a highly porous rock.
And this is where the geology gets wildly counterintuitive. Because unexposed tuff, like deep underground, is incredibly soft.
Very soft.
Like you could literally carve a hole into it with a metal spoon or, a really rudimentary hand tool.
Yeah, you wouldn't need heavy machinery.
But the moment you expose that freshly carved rock to the outside air, it oxidizes. It undergoes this chemical reaction and hardens into a formidable protective shell.
And that paradox, right? Soft enough to carve easily, but hardening upon exposure to the air, is essentially the geological lottery ticket that made human life possible here.
See, they didn't have to build.
Right. Ancient communities realized they didn't need to harvest timber or quarry heavy stone to build a house. They just needed to dig.
Which brings us back to that subterranean science fiction scenario you mentioned. The underground cities of Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı.
Right.
When you descend into these spaces today, the sensory shift is jarring.
Oh, absolutely. It's immediate.
We step out of this blinding, baking sun of the Anatolian plains and immediately plunge into a cool, dark environment.
And very cramped.
Very. You're navigating these incredibly tight descending tunnels where you literally have to physically hunch over. And then it suddenly opens up into this staggering infrastructure.
It's a whole city. Communal kitchens, chapels, wineries. Underground.
Oil presses, livestock stables.
But wait, I have to stop and look at the logistics here. Because we're talking about thousands of people, plus sheep and cows, living hundreds of feet underground for weeks or months at a time.
Yeah, during a siege.
So the sheer volume of body heat, the smoke from cooking fires, the human and animal waste.
It's a lot to manage. How do they not all just die of asphyxiation or disease within a week.
That is exactly the logistical nightmare the builders had to solve. And their solution is honestly a masterpiece of thermodynamics.
How so?
Well, they didn't just dig holes, right? They engineered this massive central ventilation shaft.
Like a giant lung.
Exactly like a lung. I mean, it utilized the basic principle that hot air rises. So you have ambient heat from thousands of bodies, animals, small fires.
All generating a ton of heat.
Right, and that creates a constant thermal updraft. So as this hot, stale air naturally rushes up that main chimney, it creates a vacuum at the bottom.
So it's basically a subterranean engine.
Precisely. And that vacuum pulled fresh, cool air down through dozens of smaller, disguised intake shafts scattered across the surface.
Wow.
Yeah, it provided a continuous cycle of breathable air all the way down to the lowest levels.
Okay, but what about the smoke? Because a fire underground seems like a terrible idea.
Well, they use specific types of smokeless wood, and they designed the cooking areas with these multi-layered porous rock ceilings.
To absorb it.
Yeah, it naturally dispersed what little smoke there was into the surrounding geology, rather than funneling it up to the surface where, it would alert the enemy.
It is so smart. And the sanitation. Because 1,000 sheep in a cave sounds like a massive biological hazard.
They managed waste with really strict zoning. Livestock were kept strictly on the first and second levels.
Closest to the surface.
Exactly, to keep the odors and methane away from the deeper living quarters. And they used sealed clay pots for human waste.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, stored in designated areas and treated with crushed limestone to neutralize pathogens and odor until they could be emptied after the threat had passed.
So what does this all mean for the people actually enduring this? Because it means these cities were not meant to be permanent everyday homes.
Right, no, they were highly engineered panic rooms.
Panic rooms.
Yeah, they were subterranean lifeboats. The historical context here is that this region was a crossroads for invading empires, from the Hittites to the Romans to the Mongols.
Everybody was marching through.
Exactly. Early Christians, in particular, used these cities to escape persecution. And because the primary goal was defense, the architecture itself is weaponized.
The doors. This is like my favorite piece of engineering in the whole complex.
They are incredible.
When you are moving through those narrow tunnels, you realize the cramped space isn't a design flaw, it's crowd control.
Yep.
You are forcing an invading, heavily armored army to move single file, completely hunched over. And then the invaders run into the ultimate security system.
Massive circular stone doors.
Weighing up to 1,000 pounds.
They resemble giant millstones, basically. And the mechanics of locking them are brilliantly simple. They sat in an angled groove carved right into the wall of the tunnel.
Right, so they could only be operated from the inside.
Exactly.
If you were sheltering inside, you just pull a wooden retaining pin and gravity rolls this massive stone plug right across the tunnel opening.
And the outside of the stone is completely smooth.
So the invaders are stuck in a claustrophobic tunnel, hunched over, with zero leverage and absolutely no way to grip or move a 1,000-pound rock.
And if you look closely at those stone doors, there's a small hole carved directly in the center.
Like a peephole.
You'd think so, but no. It wasn't for checking who was outside. It was designed so the defenders could spear invaders through the door without ever exposing themselves.
Wow.
It is absolute mastery of defensive terrain.
Which gives you just a profound appreciation for human resilience. I mean, we often look at ancient history as primitive, but they manipulated physics and geology to survive apocalyptic threats.
They really did.
And what's incredible is that this deep connection to the volcanic earth doesn't stop at sheer survival.
No, it permeates everything.
Right, because the exact same volcanic ash that made the tough rocks soft enough to carve slowly eroded over millions of years. Right?
Yeah, washing down into the valleys.
Collecting in the region's waterways, particularly the Kızılırmak River.
The Red River, which is the longest river entirely within Turkey, and it's basically the lifeblood of the town of Avanos.
And here's where it gets really interesting for anyone taking this deep dive with us, because the iron oxide from that volcanic soil gives the river clay this very distinct red color.
And an incredible structural elasticity.
Yes. So for millennia, tucked behind these heavy wooden doors in Avanos, family-run workshops have been harvesting this river clay. They don't just carve the earth anymore, they mold it.
There is a really beautiful continuity to that, I think. The people of Cappadocia evolved from hiding inside the earth to holding it in their hands and shaping it into functional art.
It's poetic. And if you sit inside one of these studios and watch a master potter on a traditional kick wheel, you are literally watching applied physics.
It's mesmerizing.
They take a wet, heavy lump of this volcanic clay and their hands. They force the earth to rise into an impossibly thin, elegant vessel.
It looks like magic.
It really does. But the studios often let visitors sit at the wheel and try it themselves.
Which I imagine provides a very swift reality check regarding the skill required.
Oh, it is hilarious. You sit down, apply a tiny bit of uneven pressure, and the clay just immediately collapses into this lopsided, wobbly mess.
Yeah, the wheel is unforgiving.
You realize that simplicity is the ultimate disguise for mastery. The master potter is constantly calculating moisture, rotational speed, structural integrity, without even thinking about it.
And that physical mastery of the local environment extends directly into another defining craft of the region: hand-woven Turkish carpets.
Oh, yes.
While a potter manipulates the earth with speed, the weavers manipulate thread with just a terrifying amount of patience.
A terrifying amount.
We are talking about the famous double knot, or the Giorda's knot, which creates a carpet of unbelievable durability.
But I want to push back on the romanticization of this just a bit.
Okay, sure.
Because we look at a carpet that takes a weaver a year to complete, tying hundreds of knots per square inch, and we call it focus and patience.
Right.
But historically, wasn't this less about artistic expression and more just the harsh reality of an agrarian economy?
How do you mean?
Like, if you were snowed in during a brutal Anatolian winter with your flock of sheep, shearing them and weaving carpets is essentially a survival mechanism to generate income when you can't farm.
That is a very astute point, and you are absolutely right about the agrarian origins. It was an economic necessity.
Right.
But what's fascinating here is how that necessity evolved into a highly complex visual language. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the women weaving these carpets weren't just passing time.
What were they doing?
They were coding information.
Coding, like a binary language.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Because many of these women historically did not read or write in a traditional sense, the carpet became their historical document.
Oh, wow.
Every geometric pattern, every motif of a bird or a star or a ram's horn, it was a specific symbol representing a desire for fertility, protection from the evil eye, or the telling of a family lineage.
They wove their literal life stories, knot by knot, into the fabric.
Exactly. So when you look at an antique Cappadocian rug, you are reading a localized memoir that took a year to write by hand.
That is incredible.
And to fully understand that, you have to understand the culture of Turkish hospitality that surrounds it. When you visit a carpet cooperative, it is not a retail transaction.
You don't just swipe your card.
No, you are invited in, you are seated, and you are immediately offered a glass of hot, strong Turkish tea.
Always the tea.
Always. The exchange of time and respect is mandatory before any business is even discussed. It's a cultural acknowledgement of the immense human labor staring you in the face.
I love that the hospitality is literally baked into the experience. And speaking of baked,
Nice transition.
thank you. The connection to the clay we talked about in Avanos doesn't stop at bowls and vases. It literally dictates the thermodynamics of Cappadocian cuisine.
The region's geology permeates the kitchen just as much as it permeates the architecture.
Let's talk about the local specialty, the pottery kebab, or testi kebab.
Oh, yeah.
This is a brilliant culinary hack. They take meat, usually lamb or beef, along with tomatoes, garlic, peppers, and spices, and they seal it all completely inside one of those Avanos clay pots.
Just cram it all in there.
Yep. And then they cap it with a piece of dough or a clay lid, and they bury it in the embers of a fire or put it in a stone oven for hours.
And what they're doing there is creating a localized single-use kiln.
Right.
By sealing the pot, they create a vapor lock. As the heat rises, the water content inside the vegetables and the meat turns to steam. But it has nowhere to go.
So the pressure inside the pot increases.
Which means the boiling point of the liquid inside actually rises above normal atmospheric levels.
Wow, science in the kitchen.
Exactly. This pressurized high-heat environment physically breaks down the tough collagen in the meat, melting it into gelatin without boiling off any of the volatile aromatic compounds from the spices.
It's thermodynamics resulting in the most tender, flavorful meat imaginable. And there are specific spots in the region acting as guardians of this slow food technique. You have places like Dibek Restaurant, which leans heavily into the historical atmosphere, serving these slow-cooked Anatolian recipes in a building that has stood for generations.
A class.
Then you have spots like Old Cappadocia Cafe and Restaurant near the center of garum.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, strips away the pretense and just focuses on hearty, home-style execution. And for a broader perspective, Seton Anatolian cuisine takes those same deep-rooted regional recipes and elevates the presentation, pairing it with panoramic views of the valleys.
They each offer a totally different lens on the exact same fundamental chemical process.
But I'm going to challenge the presentation of this dish for a second.
Bring it on.
If you order a pottery kebab today, they bring this scorching hot clay vessel to your table, and the waiter literally takes a small hammer or a large knife and craps the top of the pot completely off in front of you.
Releasing that massive plume of steam.
Right. Is that dramatic tableside decapitation of the pot actually necessary, or is it just like Instagram theater for modern tourists?
Well, it's highly theatrical today, certainly, but the origin is purely functional.
Really?
Yeah, because the pot was entirely sealed with clay or dough to ensure the vapor lock held during hours of high heat cooking. So the vessel became a solid fused object.
Oh, I see.
The only physical way to access the food inside was to break the seal by fracturing the clay. It was literally a one-time use cooking vessel.
Okay, that makes the theater of it completely earned.
Modern restaurants have definitely stylized the breaking of the pot for the visual appeal, but it is rooted in the very real physics of how the food had to be cooked.
And it is vital to remember that while the famous restaurants do this really well, some of the most profound culinary experiences in this region happen in the tiny family-run cafes,
Absolutely.
the places with handwritten menus, the spots where they serve incredible homemade lentil soups and fresh guzlem.
Oh, guzlem is amazing.
That savory stuffed flatbread cooked on a convex iron griddle. I mean, the food is magnificent because the volcanic soil of the region is incredibly fertile, yielding produce with intense concentrated flavors.
Which brings us, I think, to the final and perhaps most immersive way to experience this geological timeline.
We've covered a lot of ground, or, well, underground.
Right. We have looked at how the Earth provided ancient survival bunkers, raw material for art, and pressurized cooking vessels. The culmination of this relationship in the modern era is how we physically inhabit the space today.
You literally pay to sleep inside the rock.
Yes.
The cave hotels of Cappadocia are the ultimate adaptive reuse of a landscape. And the great news for you listening is, staying in one doesn't require a luxury budget.
Not at all.
Gurkreams is filled with family-run, affordable properties that have converted ancient dwellings into stunning guest houses. Places like Garum Cave Rooms, Kosi Pension, and Traveler's Cave Hotel.
Great spots.
You get the authentic experience of a room carved directly into the tough rock, but with, modern comforts.
And choosing these smaller, family-operated cave hotels over a monolithic, corporate concrete resort isn't just a budget decision, it's actually a structural one.
How so?
It comes right back to the thermodynamics of the rock itself. When you sleep in a properly maintained cave room, you are experiencing the natural thermal mass of the tuff.
Which means?
The rock absorbs the intense heat of the Anatolian sun during the day, keeping the interior cool. And at night, when the desert air drops in temperature, the rock slowly releases that stored heat.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's a zero electricity climate control system. Furthermore, by staying in these family-run spots, you are supporting a decentralized model of tourism.
You get the local intelligence.
Exactly. You get personalized recommendations from locals who understand the topography, steering you toward hidden valleys and trails rather than just the crowded standard guidebook viewpoints.
And we absolutely cannot discuss these hotels without talking about the breakfast.
Oh, the breakfast.
Because waking up in a cave hotel is a masterclass in agricultural wealth. Picture this. You step out onto your stone terrace in the early morning,
The sky is filled with those iconic hot air balloons.
drifting silently on the thermal currents. And in front of you is a traditional Turkish breakfast.
The spread is legendary.
It covers the entire table. You have freshly baked breads, multiple types of local sheep and cow cheeses, incredibly rich olives, cucumbers, and tomatoes that actually taste like tomatoes because they were grown in that mineral-rich volcanic ash.
Plus the sweets.
Yes, homemade fig and apricot jams, eggs, thick honeycomb, and endless beautifully curved glasses of hot black Turkish tea.
It really is the ultimate distillation of the region. You are sitting on the carved volcanic rock, eating the bounty grown from its soil, watching balloons ride the air currents above it.
So let's take a breath and look at the massive chain of events we've unpacked today.
It's a lot.
It is. We completely bypassed the superficial postcard image to find the mechanical foundation of Cappadocia. We saw how a prehistoric volcanic eruption created a paradoxical rock called tuff.
Yep.
We saw how ancient, terrified populations used the thermodynamics of that rock to engineer subterranean cities that kept 20,000 people breathing and hidden.
And safe.
And safe. We saw how that same rock, eroded into river clay, is manipulated by centrifugal force into elegant pottery, and how it acts as a pressurized kiln for the local cuisine.
Which is so cool.
And finally, we saw how modern cave hotels utilize the thermal mass of the Earth to provide a totally unique, naturally climate-controlled experience.
The through line is undeniable. It's really a story of profound human biomimicry.
Biomimicry.
Yeah, of studying the environment and adapting to its rules rather than forcing the environment to adapt to ours.
Which raises an incredibly important question for us today.
It really does. If you look at how we build modern civilization, we almost exclusively build on top of the Earth.
We just pave over it.
We pave over the landscape with concrete. We constantly fight against the natural environment, using massive amounts of electricity to heat and cool inefficient glass boxes.
Right.
But the ancient Cappadocians built with the Earth, and they built into the Earth. They utilized the landscape's natural properties to solve extreme problems of temperature and security.
They worked with what they had.
Exactly. So as we face increasingly severe modern climate challenges, volatile weather patterns, energy crises, it's worth asking, could the architectural future of humanity look a lot more like the subterranean past of Cappadocia?
Wow.
Must we relearn how to collaborate with the Earth's thermal mass rather than just building on top of it?
That is a stunning thought to end on, taking a prehistoric survival tactic and applying it to our climate future. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It's been fun.
It has. I hope this conversation has given you a whole new lens through which to view the world and inspired you to always ask about the mechanics beneath the surface. Because as we saw today, the postcard might show you the hot air balloons, but the real marvels of human engineering are always hidden in the rock below. Keep digging, stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.